This is Meredith for Real, the Curious Introvert, and I'm Meredith. Around here, we explore taboo questions and societal blind spots. Each high contrast guest gives you the layered deep dive that you crave, not just those Google results making headlines. My mission, and yours if you choose to accept it, is to inspire curiosity by exploring the nuance and paradox of our world. Each episode is different, so bring your AD and your earbuds and have a look around. The questions of the day are, do we accept the creepy side of tech in order to enjoy its benefits? And how do we navigate consent, especially, as my guest points out, with security surveillance tech in private homes? Like, hey pal, thanks for inviting me to the barbecue, but can you disable your Nest camera system before I come by? So weird. You'll hear us pack this sort of thing, plus how he reconciles his enthusiasm for digital privacy with his creation of a real-life Sims game called Fish Tank. And while this is more of a conversation about tech philosophy versus just tech, he does give real and very practical solutions to increase your personal privacy while preventing a techno-paranoid spiral. And by the way, if you would like input on future episodes, consider this your official invite to my private Facebook group. I post content in there that I don't share anywhere else and do occasional giveaways. Search MFR Curious Insiders on Facebook or click the link in the show notes to request to join. Hope to see you in there. And if you end up liking this episode, you will also like the one about EMFs, knowing the dangers minus the tinfoil hats. That is episode 109. All right, friends, keep it curious. Unless you've been living under a rock with a flip phone and a typewriter, you've likely experienced a moment where you've talked about something with a friend, only to later see that thing pop up on your news or social media feed. It's a creepy feeling, but also a confusing one, because not only do we want to enjoy the modern convenience of asking Google where the nearest taco truck is, we don't want to be left behind in modern skill sets. My next guest is a technologist best known for founding the decentralized social network Minds, but you may have seen him on Joe Rogan, NPR, or the New York Times. Today we're going to talk about personal privacy, corporate policy, and practical tips as we ask the question, is giving up our privacy inevitable? Exploring ethics and innovation, pushing envelopes and algorithms, Bill Ottman. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Well, I thought we would start big and then kind of work our way into the little, if you're good with that. So, is privacy a human right?
It's not black or white. It depends where you are, what app you're using. I do think that there's a certain degree of personal responsibility, a major degree of personal responsibility involved in protecting your privacy. It's like if you're in a public space, your expectation of privacy is going to be less than in your own home.
I guess my mind immediately goes to philosophically, if anonymity is a basic human right, choosing when to be anonymous and when to be known, like you said, in a public place versus, I don't know, an app that continues to track you when you're not using it.
For countries to respect your right to anonymity is obviously really important. You look at investigative journalism. I mean, you have an authoritarian government that doesn't respect any kinds of rights to anonymity. That's going to be a serious problem for journalists and anyone else who might be pursuing controversial topics.
Well, that's funny that you bring up journalism, because I don't think I ever associated the value of privacy to the trustworthiness of journalism. And we can't have trustworthy journalism without certain privacy rights, which kind of leads me to my next question, just about Americans in general, because as someone who is in tech, you've got your hands all in it. What privacy rights do Americans have? Because, as Americans, we love to throw that around like, it's my right, it's my choice. But what is the reality of the rights of Americans?
Yeah, I mean, we have the right to not be searched without a warrant. That's a really big one. And if you look at what's been going on over the last couple decades with a lot of these government programs trying to subvert that, and just this revolving door between big tech companies and the government, where like during the Biden administration, they were just sending requests for meme accounts to get banned because it said stuff that they disagreed with about COVID. And then it goes back much further than that to Edward Snowden and the PRISM expose with the NSA and all of the backdoors into big tech companies. So that's a huge problem when that type of unconstitutional system is happening.
Well, because we as individuals are just like busy living our lives. We're doing the thing, we're worried about those daily details that make up our families and our, our careers. And so we forget things like the Patriot Act, for example. Like once it was passed, it actually was active until 2020. And I don't know that most people realize that. And you brought up Edward Snowden. That was one of those things where people, if they watched the documentary or the movie, they might be enraged at the idea of the US government spying on us, but then you also have the reaction of, well, I don't have anything to hide.
It's just this sort of cop out to not have to think about the problem. All it ends up doing is just accepting the behavior of these big tech companies, which could cause serious problems for you. Imagine Verizon or Snapchat or Facebook gets hacked and all of your personal DMs with your partner, or I mean, it's like people do want to hide that, and if they didn't, then they wouldn't be having those conversations in what they perceive as private. So you do have to think about the worst case scenario, and that's why end-to-end encryption is essential, and using messaging apps and email apps that can do that for you, because as long as the app is a good app and you can share your photos and voice notes and videos, like, you don't really care. It's just a matter of getting to that point where you're not using the default messaging app on an Android or iPhone, and you're using Signal, or you're using the Brave browser, or using Minds, or there's a whole list of privacy-centric apps. There's a cool site called Prism Break, which lists like all of the major apps and then like privacy focused alternatives to everything. That's a really good place where you say, oh, like, what are the alternatives for my Maps app? Maps is a big one.
Okay, share. How so?
Well, Maps is just literally following you around everywhere you go. So
even if your location is off on your phone?
Yes. Well, there's different mechanisms that would be tracking your location in that regard. And I mean, if you want to take it as far as possible, you're going to end up, I don't know if you've ever heard of Richard Stallman. He is the sort of co-founder of GNU Linux, which is like the original free and open source operating system. He will not even touch a piece of hardware or software that is not free software, which is not free as in free beer, it's free as in freedom. And there's all these principles about kind of what constitutes free software. And I would send him, because he was unwilling to go to news websites, because most news websites have trackers in them, whether it's Google Ads or whatever it is. So he won't even go to those websites. And what I would do is I would go to them and I would copy 5 news articles, just paste the text into an email of like, important stuff in the world, and I would send it, because that's how he wanted to consume his news without getting all the cookies and whatnot associated with these websites. So it definitely can be debilitating if you're going to go that far. I think there's a happy middle ground where you can have some basic tools in place, VPN and all your apps, and using the right app for the right job. But it's a learning process, and it takes time and energy. And I forget the name of the Maps app, but like the inconvenience of it is that you have to download the individual maps for the areas that you want. Like, it's not Google Maps. So in order to have it like local on your phone, you have to get the maps that you need. And then it's definitely usable, and it's definitely way easier than using an actual map, but it's not Google Maps or Apple, which are so easy. But like, yeah, those would arguably be super dangerous things if you were exposing the government and they could just easily look at what you were doing, and particularly if you're in an authoritarian country. But I mean, as we see, even in the US, they've pushed more of their focus on domestic terrorists, which is just sort of an absurd term in itself. But so it does matter here.
Yeah, it matters a lot. I want to kind of follow the breadcrumbs of why this is important. And even though people may not go to the extremes as the Linux founder guy, that it might matter. And I want your take on this because I interviewed a guy who is a US Marine, and his take on privacy was really interesting. Our interview wasn't even about that actually, but it came up, and he said that for foreign governments to kind of cut us off at the knees, they would wisely do it in a way that includes these psychological strategies, and that they would use social media and the data points on each individual in order to do that. And I read that there's 50,000 to 100,000 data points on each person daily through Google Maps, email, texting, social media posts, all of the things, and that they would use that to influence elections, of course, but also just to influence regular people psychologically to see what makes them tick. I had a friend that said, "Oh, who cares what if people know what underwear I buy? Like, who cares if they're collecting those cookies on what I purchased on Amazon?" And to me, it's probably not based on the underwear purchases, but if this Marine is correct, that there could be more like sinister potential outcomes based on the collection of the data, not the individual underwear, but the what motivates you and what do people do when they're sad and what makes them sad and how can we make them angry?
You're just empowering people who don't necessarily have your interests in mind. I mean, look, if you're running a scholarly experiment, I mean, the more data you have to work with, the more targeted you're going to be able to create results. There may be people who are using the data in a way that does benefit you, but that's not the point. I see a lot of people saying, I like the ads. Mm-hmm. Because they literally, I wanted that carpet and they gave it to me and they showed it to me and I got it. And I've seen that argument and I think that's valid. But again, it could be negative and you need to be prepared for that. So we're just sort of in this race. And when you deprive yourself of the benefits that the algorithms are going to bring you, it does make it harder. I mean, for instance, at Minds, we have had to spend so much time and money building certain aspects of the app. And just for people who don't know, yeah, Minds is a open source, decentralized social media platform. So we have apps like Instagram or X, but the underlying components which are powering everything are all built in a way which is not collecting all your data and gives you the ability to not share any personal information. And we're not using third-party plugins which are just sending your data everywhere. And when you're building a startup or you're building an app, you have the option to take all these shortcuts. Take an example of like push notifications. You can either do it the hard way and expensive way and build it yourself and fully open source and we're hosting everything, or you can use one of these proprietary services out there and just plug it into your app and it takes way less time. But in the process of doing that, you are giving that data to that company about all of the push notifications that are going out about your users on the app. So a lot of the onus of the privacy is on the app developers. But then it's also on the individual. So many startups that even say they care about privacy, they just don't in practice. So many apps say they care about your data, but it's just so easy to say those words. And for most people, that's all they want to hear. Oh, they said they care about it. But actually, in practice, if you look at the app, it has all of these third-party services running, which are doing the opposite of that. Any site that you go to that has Google ads on it is absorbing an insane amount of information. That's a lot of sites. And it's hard to blame people because this is how they make money. Google has done an incredible job. They did build an amazing product that helps people make money. And you're going to make more money if you're giving them more data, which can sell more ads.
Well, they've sort of set the bar for data collection because, like, when I talk to prospective advertisers for my show, for example, they're asking me all these questions about audience demographics, I have to explain to them podcasting works differently because aside from Spotify, there's really not those detailed data points. I can't even tell you outside of Spotify and outside of YouTube if my audience is male or female. Like the most basic, and there's a lot of people in the podcasting community who are advocating for that to continue. And actually, some people won't even host on Spotify because of the way that the data is collected and shared on that app. But it's like Google has set the bar for what you get to know. Facebook too. Facebook, until recently, I think, well, you would know better than I, they've collected strangely specific data points on their users, and that's what advertisers have become accustomed to.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's sort of a systemic thing in podcasting where, yeah, there's very little data because it's getting distributed on RSS feeds, and these different podcatchers are not sending that data back. And so it is what it is. And it's actually a good thing.
It is a good thing. Well, yeah, because you mentioned people in like authoritarian governments. This is how, like, I explain it to people is, let's say you're queer and you live in Iran, where the queerness is punishable by, I think, death. It's not a good situation. And you want to listen to a queer podcast. Unless you listen on Spotify, you are completely anonymous in that process with the help of a VPN. So that's like what makes podcasting special is it's intimate and it's direct to the person who wants to hear it without anyone stepping in.
Just a quick follow-up on that. Look at the UK right now. I mean, people are getting arrested for social media posts.
Oh, yeah.
And like, that's the UK.
Yeah.
So if you really want to speak your mind over there about controversial topics, you need to be able to be anonymous. That's the only way that you can even do it. Otherwise, you're risking having the police knock on your door. And that's very close to home. I try not to get into the whole identitarian aspect of politics, but like the censorship that was happening in the US that has been happening specifically under the Biden administration, it got way worse. But I mean, obviously all the big tech companies have been doing it for much longer than that. I mean, there are interests in the government that really don't want certain information getting out. And we're sort of in this process right now of disclosure. And people who don't want that kind of information out are going to fight for their lives to keep it secret. People fighting for censorship have something to hide. I do think that in some of these authoritarian countries, some of these leaders are just so deeply insecure. They log on, they see criticism of themselves, and they just can't handle it on a personal level. But then they take that personal vendetta and they turn it into law. It's really sad. And that's why, as everyone's becoming more public, everybody's giving up their privacy a lot more intentionally. And now we have live streaming and social media, which makes it ubiquitous. There are benefits of that. It's not one size fits all. I mean, some people want to live stream all day, every day, and they want to share their personal thoughts and they want to be a public figure and they want to overshare. That doesn't necessarily mean they want their location data getting shared everywhere, but they have made a decision to say, like, I'm going to be super public with my life, and there's going to be benefits that come with that and also consequences. And so I don't think that social media itself is like inherently negative. I do think there's a lot of people who are posting on Facebook all the time, not really trying to be a public figure. They're almost using it as like a journal, and they're not realizing what they're doing, and they're not sort of matching that with their goals in life. You just got to know that that stuff can be used against you later.
But they don't believe that. So let's dig into that because that's like that privacy paradox, right? That the idea that people would be outraged after watching the Edward Snowden movie. Oh my gosh, the US government was spying on us. That's awful. And they get mad when cameras are installed on their street. And yet they're on purpose and voluntarily posting very detailed medical information on a social platform. And maybe their account is private using Facebook or Instagram as an example, but it's still the internet. In fact, I have a listener who was a digital forensic specialist for a state-funded college system in the HR department. And his job literally was to search the internet for reasons for people to not be hired. And
Wow.
so, and he went over my Facebook, which is kind of horrifying. And he said, those cute pictures of you with your family where your like hand is out to the side, all I'd have to do is put some drug paraphernalia photoshopped in there, and I could easily create a smear campaign. This guy's been a listener for a long time. He passes the vibe check. But the point is valid. And the idea that there are people who have these official positions at higher institutions, I think, is a little bit of a wake-up call because they don't think that it will impact them. And so they post things like, my son or my daughter was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, for example. Well, how do you know that an employer who won't get caught from discriminating against your child will not hire that child? How do you know that there won't be legal protections from life insurance companies from not accepting them to give them a policy? You don't.
Yeah, for sure. And it depends on your goals in life. If you are inspired to be an independent entrepreneur in whatever field and you're not going to be relying on institutions or corporations for your life, okay, great. Like you probably have a better shot at being able to get away with sharing a lot of stuff online because you're just going to be relying on yourself. But if you're planning on working with big institutions, then those are going to be the types of groups that are going to hire people to be digging in on you and finding any reason not to hire you. And guess what? Those institutions and corporations often won't hire you if you have a certain political opinion or you're into certain topics because it's just not worth the risk to them.
But young people don't have the chance to even consent to a lot of the sharing when their parents are posting on their behalf.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Oh, my son ran away again. And it's like a public post, understandably, because they want to find the son who ran away. But it's like, okay, there's 5 of these out. You didn't even delete them. That's definitely going to affect that child's future relationships, perhaps.
100%. Yeah, I think that kids should not be shared by their parents on social media. But again, there's even still nuance there because I think the justification for some parents getting their kids a presence on social media is that that becomes an asset to that kid when they grow up. It's kind of tough. If your parents were careful about it and didn't overshare anything like overly personal, but they did build you a social media account so that when you turned 18, you had a YouTube channel with 1 million followers waiting for you so that you could have that asset for your life. I mean, there is that argument. It's complicated. One of the co-founders of Reddit did this. I don't even know if I agree with it or not, but like they established the social media handles of their kids. Granted, they're celebrities, and they know that if they create those channels, they're going to get hundreds of thousands of followers, but they did that. And so I don't know how much they post. I don't check, but without even posting much, they're establishing the channels so that people can follow them. And there's a decent argument for those as assets, but for sure, just like being an annoying on your account, sharing all this information, showing off your kids, that's just completely over the top and unnecessary. It's just feeding the parents' egos so that people can say, oh, that's cute, but they're not realizing what that could be doing to their kids in just a few years.
Being watched also changes the behavior of the person being watched. We all know that. You have a party at your house and you have let's say you have a giant tripod with a camera on it, people are going to act differently at that party. And so there's a lot to be said about the way that being watched essentially changes the way a child would develop, maybe even the way that their brain would develop, because their reward systems could be heavily influenced by, oh, mommy, did they think that was cute? And I know you have kids, so I'm curious to ask you if knowing how the sausage is made has changed the social media rules at your house.
Oh yeah, and I have a sixth grader, and she's doesn't have a phone and isn't getting one for a while. She has an iPad that we let her use at home sometimes, but like all her friends have phones at school. She has a watch which can call us, but we don't let her use social media. And the thing you said about behavior in reaction to being on camera is very true. I mean, even my 5-year-old daughter, if I take out the phone, even my 2-year-old son, they see you on their phone. They know if you're taking a picture of them. They know if you're taking a video. And over time, like my 5-year-old will get shy if I take it out. And I really try to discipline myself to not even be holding my phone around them. And because just looking at your phone, even if your kids are watching TV and you're over on your phone, I just want to hide it from them as much as possible because I'm sort of showing my addiction, which I'm guilty of, to them. And it's like, why are you on the phone and not watching the show with me or just sitting with me and showing me how to live without constantly looking at the phone? So there's a behavioral thing, the reward system for sure. All of that is so true. And I, for the past few years, was very guilty of using my phone in bed before going to sleep. And my wife has been amazing she never has done that. She always has left her phone out of the room going in for bed. And just about a month ago, I made myself leave the phone out of the room before going in. And it's been great. It's so much useless doom scrolling that I was doing. And granted, I would be like listening to good podcasts and stuff, but still just like having earbuds and like phones near your bed. I think it's inconclusive about like the impact of the EMFs and whatnot from having phones near your bed, but it seems probably not worth the risk.
The Communications Act or whatever it was called in the 90s that allowed telecommunications companies to set up towers and stuff on public right-of-ways, like right near people's houses without permission.
Right.
That whole thing really is a problem when it comes to the publications of these research findings because it would mean undoing a lot of infrastructure.
Oh my God. Yes. Yes.
So yeah, that's like a whole nother rabbit trail.
It's relevant. This morning, I noticed driving by a police station, like there's a huge 5G tower right next to the police station. I feel bad for the government employees. Even if it's unknown, like that would be $1 trillion project to move all of that around so that the towers are in more remote areas. It's like a major infrastructure change.
I think it is relevant to the conversation of privacy because it's really comes down to the notion of like consent and how many experiments do you want to be a part of as a human being, right? And so it kind of creates this inner conflict of wanting to get all the benefits of modern living without
right.
without being too much into an experiment. So on that note, let me kind of slip into the practical real quick. So talk to me about Signal because I have it, but is it like WhatsApp where other people also need to have Signal in order to text them on it? So you have to kind of harass your friends and family to get with the program in order to use it?
Yeah, but you can just text with it too.
Like regular to somebody who doesn't have Signal?
Yeah, if you enable it for SMS. It's very similar to WhatsApp, but WhatsApp says they're encrypted.
But it's owned by Meta, which
it's owned
is
by
a little
Meta,
sketchy.
and they can't prove that it's encrypted because it's not open source software. So Signal, I mean, even governments use it, as we just saw with the leaked Signal texts. But, what that really shows, interestingly, is that no matter how much encryption you use, you're only as safe as the people who are in the conversation because people can share.
Well, that's kind of like that human behavior puzzle piece of it all, right? Because the reason that moms and dads overshare part other than the vanity metrics of it, getting the likes and the attention, is there is admittedly a sense of community when it comes to social media. So as parents struggling with something would find comfort in being able to connect with other parents of children who have similar difficulties.
Yeah, or family group chats or groups. I've really tried to get away from like techno guilt which I've experienced heavily in the past after becoming aware of all this information. And you just need to do what you can. There's no reason to not switch your browser. There's no reason to not switch your messaging app.
And so for the browser, you said use Brave. I use DuckDuckGo. Is that a good one?
Yeah, that's not so much a browser as a search engine, but you can, like, I have DuckDuckGo default on Brave as the search engine. There's another browser coming out called the Ladybird browser, which is like a fully independent, because the thing about Brave is that it's based on Chromium, which is Chrome, but actually the Chromium is the good part of what Google created for Chrome. It's kind of the underlying engine, but then Chrome, Google's released version, has all kinds of nasty stuff in it. So Brave basically took Chromium and built more of a privacy conscious browser on top of the engine. But now Ladybird is coming out, and it's really exciting to have a fully independent browser.
You said in our pre-chat that there were consequences to Googling anything that comes to your mind. Is that the reason why
well, for sure. But also, I think that AI is starting to be much more accurate and not full of crap ads. Googling something is kind of a horrible experience now. It's like the top 5 things are ads, and then there's a lot of like SEO gaming that people do to get their stuff listed. If you go to minds.com, or if you're running your own app, you can have your own AI, which is not sharing that data with those corporations. But AI opens a whole privacy can of worms too. I mean, people are giving all of their personal data to AI and on a completely different level, but it is amazing what's happening with it, specifically with like medical stuff. And I'm doing that now, but I'm doing it with a model that I run, and it's not sending all of that information to the big corporation. So you can do that on Minds. You can also check out this place called Venice.ai. When you're choosing which AI to use, don't use OpenAI. Use a privacy-focused AI. But, I mean, it's insane. Like, I fed it my blood work, and it just gave me an amazing breakdown, told me exactly what supplements I need to be using, whereas I would have needed many doctor visits. I mean, there was one kind of famous case of this guy whose dog was dying, and they didn't know what to do. And the doctors were just sort of clueless and had tried everything. And then he fed all of the test results to AI, and it gave him recommendations, which saved the dog's life. So again, it's an example of like, you're sharing data, but there's all these benefits of it. It's totally contextual to the situation, and you want to have your setup right so that you're not risking all of these consequences that we've been talking about. But I'm definitely not like a tech pessimist.
Well, and that's why I knew you were the right person to have this conversation with, because although there are college students, as a matter of fact, who have, they literally call it this bill, it's the Luddite Club. Like, would you like to go back to a day of yesteryear? Come to the Luddite Club. Bring your flip phone and your pencils, and we'll have a good old time. So I knew that you weren't that far, and I myself am trying to find this middle ground, but really it comes to the question of consent. And consent is weird, right? Because no one reads the agreements when they download an app. If you do, you'll see one of the agreements is that the agreements can change at any time without any notification. And there's this thing I learned about called nesting doll apps, like Pokemon Go. Everyone was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. We're getting outside. And it was cool, right? So it's like that, yes, and it's cool. And it is geomapping. You're basically an unpaid employee of this app. You're geomapping. And there were some questions about the cameras in those robot vacuums as well. I think there was a lawsuit, as a matter of fact. So this is the question: is giving up privacy the inevitable price for enjoying a modern world because we don't have this transparent communication on behalf of the technology makers?
Yeah, especially with like surveillance. You think you're like protecting yourself at your house by putting up all these surveillance cameras, but then meanwhile, the surveillance company that owns the cameras. You don't know where all that's going. With the baby monitors, that's
so creepy.
It's so creepy. We didn't use baby monitors, and that is like shocking to a lot of my friends and family. But baby monitors are funny because I'll notice my friends constantly checking the baby monitors, and it's just like, why? Like
that goes back to the
them.
EMFs also.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's both.
Yeah, because
it's right next to the bed. It's
right, and their brains have more water content, and so they, yeah. I did do an episode on it. Like the cell phones, my cell phone, for example, it came with a warning label, not that was printed and mailed to me with the phone, one that I had to look up after I was researching for this episode that I did. It said, "Do not hold this phone closer than 5/8 of an inch to your head."
Right, that's insane.
But let's put a baby monitor in there with Bluetooth and Wi-Fi 24/7. Actually, let's just wire our whole house with cameras. Hey Curiositors, just a quick pause to show gratitude to our sponsors and give you some special deals. From time to time, I recommend other podcasts you might like. And here's one I know that you're going to love. It's the Jordan Harbinger Show. I love it because it's smart without being too highbrow and 1000% ADD friendly. I know, you love it already. I'm a genuine true fan. When I have time to listen to podcasts just for pleasure, not, guest research, the Jordan Harbinger Show is my automatic choice. It's like when you're hungry and someone asks you what you want, and then before you even have a minute to think about it, you find yourself at Chick-fil-A because, obviously, Jordan's the Chick-fil-A of podcasts. Some of my favorites include the one with the man held hostage by Somali pirates, that's episode 115, and the pain psychologist about how pain lives in the brain, not in the body, episode 661. You can't go wrong with adding the Jordan Harbinger Show to your rotation. It's incredibly interesting and there's never a dull show. Search for the Jordan Harbinger Show, that's HARB as in boy, IN as in Nancy, GER, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. The Florida Panhandle isn't just the home of your favorite podcaster. That's me, by the way. Shameless, I know. But it's also a go-to spot for a lot of families on vacation. Don't plan a Pensacola trip without getting tickets to the UWF Historic Trust. It's good for a whole week, and it's a great indoor activity option. You'll recognize Trader John's where I record the show in the Pensacola Museum of History. Get your tickets in person so you can show the agent one of my emails and get $2 off an adult ticket. historicpensacola.org. Now back to the show. Remember to stay till the end where I give you a sneak peek of next week's episode. This is where I do get a little Luddite-y because I just think it's so creepy. But here's the thing. If you want to do that, then good on you. It's just this consent part. How can we incentivize companies to have plain language transparency on what it is that we are consenting to? Because that's where it gets sticky.
It's complicated because you go to your friend's house for dinner, they've got a Nest system in their house, and it's one thing they're going to consent, it's their house, but then all of their friends who are coming, or anybody, what are you going to ask for consent, like from every single person? How is that even achievable in practice? Because you can't. Because the camera would have to ask every person walking, do you want me to film you? But wait, I already filmed you. I had to know that you were coming in order to, it becomes almost impossible. But I'm very I'm either in or out. I think that creating clear boundaries in your house just makes sense. And it makes sense for both of the reasons, both the surveillance and just not having the potential EMF stuff. Again, okay, inconclusive, but I think that why are you trying to take that risk? Yeah, have clear boundaries. But, when you're in tech and you're online, be online. And also, I just don't let myself feel too guilty for using big tech because I have clear boundaries. I know what I'm sharing. I have my settings set up as good as they can be. There's really no good settings with big tech. Even if you have your stuff on private, it's not private. So they're tools. And sometimes you want to use a dangerous tool. Kind of what I was getting back to about mine. We took the hard path And it has made it harder to compete because you look at like Rumble, for instance. They're pretty good about free speech, but they have all kinds of spyware for their advertising business. Rumble is a company that really seems to have generally good values, but they've sort of made a business decision, which we weren't willing to make. And they just raised $800 million from Tether. And Tether's a cool company. They're using stable coins. And Rumble's still losing $30 million a quarter, but they've created a business model that people like and kind of like an alternative to YouTube. But again, they're a good example of a company sort of saying we care about all these values, but then they're pretty good on the speech stuff, but everything else is kind of like not good. And so the business of privacy is very brutal. I mean, even companies like Brave, Proton Mail, XYZ, privacy company, even a lot of the VPNs are surveillance companies just as much as they're protecting your privacy. But like Brave and DuckDuckGo, they're not like thriving, massive big tech companies. They found a pocket and they're doing pretty well, but they're still kind of struggling in comparison to the big tech companies. And then you look at like X and Elon, again, better on the speech stuff, seem to be not letting the government have as much of a say in terms of surveillance and censorship, but also like they've integrated XAI, now owns X. And so it's all about data. Everything. Right. This is like the evolutionary pull of the data, which is going to help create this super intelligence. And there's going to be lots of benefits and consequences that come from that.
Well, it's tricky because the law of commons, I think it's called, correct me, somebody, if I'm wrong, says that if doing something benefits someone, even if that something is at the detriment of the greater good, if that person can get away with doing that thing, no consequences, that person, according to the law of commons, will do it. And so that's where the whole legislation. So I have some rapid fire questions, but before we rapid fire, I have two more kind of unrapidness questions for you. And one of them, since we're talking about privacy and being observed, you're a partner on something called Fish Tank, which is a TV project a lot like Big Brother, but it's unscripted, where the viewers can make decisions for those in the house by like sending in, like paying for requests, basically. So how do you reconcile the part of yourself that's advocating for privacy first platforms like Minds while also being a part of something that's basically like a real life Sims game?
Yeah, it's all consent, basically. I mean, with fishtank.live, season 4 starts June 13th. So if you go to the site now, you're not going to really get the real experience, but June 13th. We wire up this house. People online can pay to like blast their message through speakers in the house. They can like pay to deliver a gift or like take someone's blanket away. It's this totally weird, crazy, interactive experience. And we think that Black Mirror might have even just commented on us in one of their recent episodes. We're not sure though, but it really looks like it. They had this like fake streaming platform where you could like pay to make people do crazy stuff, and it looked a lot like our sites. So we're not entirely sure, but I don't know if that would be a W or an L. But it's not like some involuntary thing. These people come as contestants on the show. They're there 24/7 for 6 weeks. There's a grand prize. They're performers.
They want to be observed.
Yes, it's a collaborative art project, essentially. And we're not necessarily saying, as the producers, this is good. It's part of what we're doing is almost commenting on the dystopian nature of reality TV. And we're almost like making fun of ourselves and it at the same time. That's kind of a narrative layer of it. But what I will say is that, for instance, in season 2, this guy TJ came in and he was like pretty severely like autistic when he came in, was twitching, like would do these major body movements. And he was like a smart guy, but clearly had some issues. He ended up winning the show. He won $50K. By the end of the 6 weeks, he was no longer doing that.
Wait, was it an act?
No, we don't believe so. And he's never said that. And I think because the experience that you go through being observed and getting all this live reaction. It's not just being observed, but literally there's speakers in the room that are live people making fun of you or inspiring you, or it's a mix of positive and negative messages.
An introvert nightmare, by the way. Like I
Yes.
couldn't ever participate in that. Like I can hardly attend a birthday party without needing recovery time. It's brutal.
There is tension there, but what Fish Tank is very much a like internet native. It's very free speech focused. We're certainly, in terms of the users, we hold all of kind of similar principles to Minds, and it's really just like a collaborative artistic community, and it's just fun. It's silly. It's comedy. And I've always been kind of obsessed with just improv, comedy, artistic collaboration. And Minds is like has done a lot of that kind of stuff with events we've done and different online collaborations. But Fish Tank really is the ultimate collaboration where like the viewers are actually co-producing the show. Their input is guiding where things go. And so it's really like this crazy organism of like the streamers, the viewers creating this art. It's fun, but I recognize a little bit.
It's ironic a little.
Yeah, ironic, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good word. We'll stick with ironic. We'll add that to your bio. Ironic. Okay, one more question before our rapid fire. And that is, I want to ask you about this legislation piece because I think knowing as voters, even just like on the local level, maybe, I don't know. I just think half of us just don't even know the right questions to ask. And I was researching this one physician who suggested that when it comes to medical privacy, for example, right, we have this really disjointed system in the US where we go to one doctor and he can't tell what the other doctor said, yet our entire medical history has been hacked how many times now? Like, what are we up to, right? Yeah. And so he suggests that each person own their own data and it be stored in blockchain. And I guess there's like a small European country that's doing this with some success. Of course, there's always some small European country doing it. I think the idea that it was passworded, and I don't want to get too hyper-focused on blockchain itself, but more just using that as an example of like, what should the public be advocating for themselves?
Yeah, for sure. Like, if you go get a blood test at Quest, like they should not be able to share your medical information with anyone. But most of these medical companies, it's really bad tech.
It's lazy.
It's lazy. It's all just bad. So I've just started, every time I go get a test, just like building my own archive of all of my stuff so that when I go to a new doctor, I have it. I don't have to be going through this insane process. It's just like every time you go to the doctor, get your stuff, keep it on your own secure folder on your own computer. And from there, you're going to be empowered to do what you need to do with it. But definitely like the disparate medical data is just ridiculous.
Do you see a world in which there is legislation protecting consumers in an honest and transparent way?
Yeah, I could see that happening.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So rapid fire questions. This is so silly to ask, but I just feel like it's the question everyone asks themselves at some point. Are our phones listening to us?
Yes. Yeah, you have to assume that unless you have a phone where you are aware of all of the components, and there are certain privacy phones which are working on this kind of thing. But the reason you have to assume that they are is because we don't know that they're not, because they're proprietary technology. You hear the things like, oh, I was just talking about coffee. I got the coffee ad on Instagram 10 minutes later. Like that stuff's totally happening. Zuckerberg keeps denying it on his podcast PR tour that he keeps doing, trying to act like he's cool now. He's not. He's not. So, yeah, I think it probably differs between phone companies in like the degree of which it's happening and the different scenarios when it may or may not be happening. But I think you should assume yes.
Is this why you should have a Faraday bag?
Sure. I actually don't have one, but I think that I would like to get one. I think that just having these types of things for, even if you have friends over, like, not necessarily because like, oh, hey, we're afraid of being spied on, but it's like, hey, everyone, put your phone in the bag while we're hanging out. Yeah. Like, that way it's like we're not on our phones, we're being present with each other. So it's kind of dual use. It's the EMF thing, but it's also just a discipline thing for your family or your group. I think it's a useful thing to have.
That's a great hack. I'm going to put all of these in my Saturday notes, by the way, for all my listeners. Like if you get my emails, literally everything we talked about here, every clickable resource will be in one nice, neat place. So if you're not on that email list, just go to meredithforreal.com and you can get there. How bad is TikTok?
Oh, it's bad. It's bad. And it's like, okay, your sixth grader is dancing on TikTok. Who's watching that?
Yeah.
The people who are watching that are sketch. So yeah, it's a problem. And then, from the surveillance standpoint, I know that there's sort of a process going on for the U.S. gaining majority ownership. And hopefully that happens, to be honest.
But the permissions, I wanted to ask you because I tried to look this up before our interview. And the website, because I don't have TikTok, but so all I could find was like on the web browser was not very detailed. But my understanding when I previously researched this is that the permissions of TikTok on your phone, once downloaded, I don't even think you have to like be active on it, just to have it on your phone. It has observational permissions to view keystrokes on other devices also connected to that same login or the same Wi-Fi or something like that. Is that still current?
I wouldn't be surprised. I haven't read their terms recently, but with many apps, you're giving blanket permissions to listen to audio, look at keystrokes, potentially look at you when you're doing other things on your phone that are not on that app. We definitely do need more heavy regulation around this kind of stuff so that it's like more specific types of permissions. You should never be able to follow someone around on their browser or their phone when they're not on your app. But then the problem is that there are certain apps that that's the point of them. It's like a remote desktop. Say you're having a tech issue on your computer and you want someone to be able to help you and fix your computer from another place. In one perspective, it's a surveillance app. In another perspective, it's a tech support app.
Yeah, and that's where that gap of consent and education comes in.
Mm-hmm.
I also wanted to ask you about 23andMe. Because for the millions, however many people that voluntarily sent their DNA to this company, which now they're going bankrupt, what's the worst case scenario there?
The DNA gets sold and is used for all kinds of weird tests, and your DNA is going to end up in some kind of mutant project. That's very feasible. But I haven't done enough research on this, but I'm very interested in my DNA data. I've never done that, but because of this kind of sketchiness with most of these companies. But I think there's a huge opportunity for a privacy-based DNA company to come out where you send it in, you get the results, and then it's immediately deleted, or it's just much more of a consent focused DNA company. Because I'm super curious about that data and where my family comes from and whatnot. So I actually do think there's a pretty big opportunity in that one.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I want to go back to Amazon, because that website that you mentioned that can tell you who are the worst offenders when it comes to privacy and data. Amazon, when I used it last, was the number one, much to my chagrin, because it is just so easy, especially as an introvert. I'm like, I don't have to people, but I can get my stuff delivered. This is fantastic. It's just wonderful. What's the alternative there? There isn't one?
There's grocery delivery apps, but there's not going to be anything like Amazon, that level of product offering. It's insane.
And Walmart's trying, but they are doing terribly.
Yeah, you should have Bezos on.
Yeah, I'll get right on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll answer my email. As we wrap up, are there any other practical tips you have for people to have more education around privacy or more agency?
We mentioned the film in the beginning, Citizen4, about Snowden's experience. I think that's a really good movie. Just change the apps. Just change your default apps. That's just a really good, achievable thing. Other than that, don't stress too much about it, because the stress about it can become a big problem. And that can have pretty negative effects on your like I've experienced that where
Paranoia.
yeah, exactly. Paranoia, but also just like, am I being a hypocrite? I'm supposed to be like Mr. Privacy, but yet, I'm Googling this. Like, so I've just sort of taken more of a just realist opinion about it, and I do everything I can, but like the guilt is not worth it. But again, that's not an excuse to like cop out. You still just take action, but don't stress about it. And I think just do the best you can do. I think this conversation has been great because we've kind of pinpointed on some of the obvious things that are just unnecessary, or maybe what's obvious to some is not obvious to others. At the end of the day, and I'll just end on this, like, I think we know when we're being compulsive with our tech behavior, or if we're about to install something. Like, we're not stupid. Like, so if you're, and a lot of times it is very like clear if like, do you need this? Or is there another way to do this, which isn't too much of an inconvenience, but is good enough? So I think that, yeah, it's creating our own personal boundaries is really the key thing. You could install every privacy app on your phone, but if you're holding your phone 24 hours a day and it's by your bedside at night, guess what? Just having the phone, you're never going to get around just having the phone. Like, mobile phones in themselves are a surveillance issue. So I think that there's a much more basic kind of zoom out where it's just like, control yourself more.
Well, and maybe I'm biased because I am a podcaster, and this is like my whole mission is be curious, ask questions, proceed with curiosity over judgment. I think there's an opportunity here to ask ourselves questions. Like, when we're buying a refrigerator, do we need a refrigerator with Wi-Fi? Do we? Do we need a television with a camera in it that senses when we're in the room watching? Like, just asking questions, getting that habit of asking the question, I think will start to unlock the right behavior on an individual level. And those individual choices can create market signals that, let's freaking hope, would create some important and practically meaningful legislation that would allow us to feel just more at ease.
Yeah, and even without legislation, I think you're right. The market data will change if we change. I mean, vote with your dollars. Like, if you go to Best Buy, you are going to be pulled into a sales funnel which does not have your privacy in mind. You're not using a camera on your TV, so why do you have a camera on your TV or your fridge? If you don't take action and educate yourself and become sort of in charge of the process, other people are going to be owning that process for you, and their interests are in pulling you into the direction. Doesn't mean that they're evil. It's just that's the corporation that they're a part of, and that's the process that's their job.
Yeah. So, so many of us, I think, especially that are, I forget what it's called when you're in between two generations, like X and millennial, like I am. I think we can possibly be intimidated by this topic. And certainly people that are boomer or full Generation X can feel like this is such a overwhelming topic. It's intimidating. Where do we even start? So I really just, because of that, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me and my audience about these questions to make the philosophy, we'll call it tech philosophy, I guess, like more accessible to the average person. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.
Yeah. Tell people where they can plug into your Minds application for corporations, where they can kind of white label that before.
Yeah. A few places to go. So if you want to launch an app for your own community, then you can check out networks.minds.com, where you can do web and get onto the app stores and have your own kind of private community, public community, whatever you want. Also, if you just want to check out Minds and poke around casually, just hit up minds.com, minds.com. I'm at Ottman on there. And thanks so much for having me.
This was awesome.
Thanks for listening. If you liked this episode, you'll also like the one I did about EMFs, knowing the dangers minus the tinfoil hats. That's episode 109. Stay tuned next week when I talk with a gastroenterologist about FMT to treat Crohn's, mental illness, and autism. That's right, I am talking poop transfer. Until then, keep it curious.